and welcome to math. Today we're going to learn how to combine like terms and how we do that and to simplify an expression. Okay, so before we do that, we have to know the parts of an expression. And there's two different types of parts of an expression. There's variable terms and there's constant terms. Okay, variable terms are anything with a variable with an unknown value, right? Constant terms are numbers that do not have a variable. Okay, so let's see here. What are my variable terms? Well, my variable terms on this one, I'm going to circle with this red circle. I see 9x, x is a variable. I see a plus 16x, and I see a minus x. All right, you notice how I circled the sign in front? The sign in front of a term stays with that term. It's like letting you know that this is a negative x, right? This is a positive 16x or a plus 16x. So you always want to include that sign in front with that term. Okay, so my variable terms are 9x, 16x, and negative 1x. So right here where it says negative x, it didn't have a 1 there, right? I wrote the 1 there just because to help remind me that that is really, when there's nothing there and it's just a negative sign, that it really means negative 1. Okay, so my coefficients are numbers that are next to the variable. Coefficients are numbers that are being multiplied to the variable. All right, so my coefficients would be 9, 16, and negative 1. Right? And then I got this negative 1 and the 16 is 9 are positive because I look at the sign in front, remember? Okay, so my constant terms are terms without a variable, So I'm going to do those in like a little rectangle. I see I have negative 2, I have a positive 8, and I have a plus 10. Right? So those are my constant terms. Negative 2, a positive 8, and a positive 10. Okay? So remember, the sign in front of a term stays with that term. So when they ask how many terms there are, that's what you need to know. No, you have to know that sign in front stays with it. That's telling you what this term is, if it's being positive or negative. All right, let's try this. It says identify the variable terms, constant terms, and coefficients. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing here. Variable terms, I'm going to see here. Variable terms, I see 8a, and I see I have a plus 2a, right? So those would be my variable terms. So I'm going to say 8a and 2a are my variable terms. My constant terms are terms that do not have a variable, right? So my constant term would be this right here, this negative 3. Negative 3 would be my constant term. All right, my coefficients are terms that are being multiplied to the variable. They're numbers in front of the variable, right? So the numbers that are in front of the variable for this one are 8 and 2. I don't know why my thing's acting all weird, but that's my coefficients, right? 8 and 2. Okay, so pause the video, try the rest of these on your own, unpause when you're done to check your work. All right, hopefully you paused the video and hopefully you tried your best and hopefully you got something like this, all right? So here are the correct answers. You can check your work and see how you did. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, combining like terms. So you can simplify an algebraic expression by combining like terms. This means to combine common variable terms and constant terms. Like terms have the same variable raised to the same power or exponent. Okay, so it says circle all the terms that would be considered like terms with 5x. So all my like terms with 5x would be these ones I'm circling now. And these are like terms because they have the same variable. They all have x, right? And the same exponent. This really has an exponent of 1, but when it's an exponent of 1, you don't write it. So then all these also have the same one, right? There's no exponent listed on each of these, right? This 5x squared is not a like term because it has this squared on it. It's saying x squared. So x squared is not a like term with x, okay? What's another tricky one? This one here, xy. If I see xy, that is not a like term. Even though they both have an x, this one also is being multiplied by a y, right? And this one is not, our original one they're asking about. So they have to have the same exact variables raised to the same power or exponent. Okay? Circle all terms that would be considered like terms with negative 4. All right, so negative 4 is a constant. It has no variable. So I can combine it with anything else that does not have a variable. So that would be like negative 8, 5, and 7. The rest of these have a variable with it, right? So if it has a variable, I can't combine it with a term that doesn't have a variable. All right, so let's try one of these together. It says simplify the expression below. All right, so this is the way I do it. What I do is I always want to do my variable terms first, okay? Because in math, there's this thing called standard form, and in standard form, your variable terms go first in alphabetical order, and then your constants are always at the end. So I want to do my variable term first. So I'm going to circle this 9x, and I'm going to go through and say, all right, what else can I combine with this 9x? Well, I can't do negative 2 because that doesn't have an x, but I can do this plus 16x because that has an x with it. I can't do this 8 because it doesn't have an x, but I can do this minus x, right? So now what I'm doing here is I can combine my like terms, and all I do is I add or subtract all my terms together. So what I'm doing is 9x plus 16x minus x. I'm just keeping those signs in front of those terms, right? So when it's a minus x, remember, when there's no number in front of a variable, it's really a 1. So really that's like negative 1x or minus 1x. All right, so now I can combine these. 9x plus 16x, that would get me 25x. All right, so then I also still have that minus x or that minus 1x, right? So 25x minus 1x would get me 24x. Okay, so that's my variable terms. So now I have to do my constants, my constant terms, my terms without variables. So let's see here. I have a negative 2, I have a plus 8, and I have a plus 10, right? So what I do there is I do the same thing. I just add and subtract all my constant terms. So I'm going to do negative 2 plus 8 plus 10. So negative 2 plus 8 is 6. 6 plus 10 is 16. So I'm going to have plus 16. And then that right there is my final answer. I can't do anything else. I can't combine 24x with 16. I can't do it. I can't add them together because they're not like terms. So you can only combine like terms. Okay? Let's try another one. Okay, so I told you, standard form is you do your variables first, and then you want to put them in order from least to, or not least to greatest. Sorry, you want to put them in alphabetical order. Okay, so alphabetical order. So I'm going to do, I have x's there and I have y's there. So I'm going to do my x first because x comes before y. So I see I have a 6x. Do I have any other x's? I do. I got one right here. I got a plus x, right? So remember, when there's no number in front, that really means that there's a 1 there. So really this is like plus 1x. So all I do is I do 6x plus 1x. 6 plus 1 is 7. And then the x's stay just the same. They stay x's. Okay? So then I can go on to my next variable term. My next variable term is, I see y's. So I can combine all my y's together. So negative 3y, and I have a minus 2y. Well, negative 3y minus 2y would get me a negative 5y. Negative 5y. All right? Then I would do my constants. My constants are the terms without variables. So the term without a variable here is this minus 25. There's no other term that doesn't have a variable, so I just bring that down, minus 25. I can't do anything else. X and Y's are not like terms. I can't combine them. They have to stay separate. I can't combine my variable terms with my constants, the terms without variables. So this is done. This is my final answer. I'm going to put a box around that so I know that's my final answer. Right there. Okay? So when you're combining like terms, all you're doing is adding and subtracting. You're adding and subtracting the coefficients of the variables, or if it's constants, you just add or subtract the numbers, right? But you can only combine things that have the same variable and that are raised to the same power. Okay? All right, so go ahead and pause the video again. Try these ones down here on your own. Try these ones down here on your own. Remember, combine like terms, they have to have the same variable raised to the same exponent or power. All right? You can't combine D's with F's or X's with Y's. You can only combine X's together, and you can only combine Y's together, things like that, right? All right, so go ahead and combine the video, combine the like terms, pause the video, try these on your own, unpause it when you're done to check your work. I know you're just waiting for the answers. Pause the video and try. All right, hopefully you paused the video and hopefully you tried your best and hopefully you got answers that look something like this. Okay? I color-coded this to try and help you guys out. I always usually circle first and try and find my like terms because sometimes these expressions get kind of long. To make sure I get them all, I almost always circle, like make sure I get all my D's first, and then usually I cross them off and then do my next one, circle them. All right, so that helps you do that. If color coding it helps you, do that too. All right, but remember, combining like terms, all you're doing is adding and subtracting. You're combining things that have the same variable raised to the same exponent. All right? And then if it has no variable, those are called constants, and you can combine those together. One I did want to point out is this one down here. We had 10g minus 6g minus 4g. So 10 minus 6 is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. So that's why there's no g here, because that would actually equal 0g, right? 0g. And 0 times g is 0. So there's no reason to put 0 here. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore, right? So if you ever get one that cancels out, that could happen, then you just don't write it. It cancels out. It gets to 0. Okay? Anyways, that's combining like terms. If you have any questions, please ask a teacher, and I'll see you next time. Bye!